Hey, this is Dylan Fry, the real estate guy, here to be your guy for any real estate needs in the Kansas City area. I'm a licensed realtor in the Kansas City market area, and I'm here to help your buy or sell in this area be an extremely smooth process. One thing that people don't really understand when they're looking at buying and selling is that it is stressful. So today on the Everyone Needs a Guy weekly interview, we are going to be interviewing Danny Davis, which owns Atlas Custom Fitness Solutions. And what they do is they take a holistic approach on how you should be eating, drinking, sleeping, and everything that you need to be doing to make sure that you are the best self that you can be. And so I think that's going to be a huge thing. If you're looking to move to the Kansas City area, I want to make sure that I get you set up with somebody that's going to help you transition through that process from a mental standpoint as well as a physical standpoint, keep you healthy. And then once you get here and settled in, also keeps you obtaining those goals that you're looking for. So before we get into that, if this is your first time to the channel, make sure you hit that like button on this video and also hit that subscribe button and hit that little bell so that you'll get any notifications of future interviews or neighborhood tours that we're doing. But to get into it, again, we're with Danny Davis, and he's with Atlas Custom Fitness Solutions. And what we are going to do is I'm going to let him get into his background and how he got started in this journey.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks, Dylan. It's great to be here. So in a nutshell, I will kind of go through my journey and how I ended up, owning Atlas. And so, so I was an athlete for my whole life. From the time I was 8 to the time I was 18, I was a competitive swimmer, and I swam in the winter and the summer, and I really enjoyed it. So when I finished high school, I knew that I wanted to go to college and study exercise science. And in college, I went to Kansas State University, and exercise science was my major. And in college, I loved learning, and as the years went on in college, I decided that, hey, I wanted to be an expert in the field and someone that people came to when they really needed help. And so,
which is why I wanted to bring you on here to help these people coming to Kansas City, is because just from the first time we met, which we met in our ACA business club.
Correct.
And where different business owners come in and get to meet with each other and also grow relationships and referral relationships and everything. And one of the big things that I took away and why I wanted to pull you in here is because of your expertise in this field, and it is such a need for people that are moving to the Kansas City area, is how are you going to be healthy?
Right. And so, after I finished school, I felt like I had missed something. I understood the body and the muscles and the bones and the joints, but I felt like there was more to the picture. And so 3 years ago, I got into the study of neurology, which is our brain and our nervous system. And that changed my career. That changed my life. And from that understanding, I now understand that our brain either views something as a threat, and if it's viewed as a threat, we don't like it, our outcomes will be bad. So that's weakness, that's stiffness, that's a bad attitude, right? That is our brain not understanding the things that we're asking it to do. Yeah. And then on the flip side, if we're comfortable with something, good outcomes happen. So we're happy, we move well, and we feel well.
Yeah, and that's one thing that throughout the home buying process is something that people have to be cognizant of, is how is that going to affect, how is this affecting me when I'm looking at going through this entire, sometimes I spend 4 months, 6 months, maybe a year with a buyer because we are going through getting them approved, looking at houses, and then making that purchase. And then there's a long period of time, and then they've got moving and other things that are adding up. Yeah. And where you're talking about, most people, the brain doesn't recognize this movement throughout the home buying process, and it sees it as a threat.
Correct.
And so tell me what you do and how like you could help somebody through that situation or any of those threats.
Yeah. So I'm sure that most people have heard of the fight or flight state, right?
Yeah.
Yep. So the fight or flight state is called your sympathetic system, and that's really good for when, like, we're in trouble and we need to make a decision, right? Like if it's life threatening, that's a really good state to be in. But on a daily basis, if we're stuck in that fight or flight state, that is very stressful to your body. So one of the first things that I do with anyone who comes to see me is, what do I know how to do to get them out of the sympathetic state or the fight or flight and into the parasympathetic, which is the rest and digest. And one of the most common things is breath. So I know that sounds kind of silly, because if we're not so if we're not able to breathe, we're not able to survive, right? So we need oxygen, but there is an efficient way and the right way to breathe, and there's a wrong way to breathe. And so if your brain is not getting in like enough fuel, which is food and oxygen, all the other functions are going to go way down. And so, for example, like 1 in 3 people are chronic hyperventilators, which means it's a lot of short, shallow breaths. So they're not able to ever get enough oxygen. So one of the things that I work on first is how to get people to get a full inhale through their nose. So working on like what it feels like for the ribs to expand, what it feels like to, take a breath through your nose and then a full exhale through your mouth. And like I said, it sounds simple and it's too easy to be true, but if you just fix like the way you breathe and really focus on inhaling through your nose and exhaling through your mouth, that is one of the first steps to get people out of that fight or flight and into the rest and digest.
Well, and it sounds simple, but a lot of people forget to do it, and that's why a lot of people do have that hyperventilation, or and you can calm people down. I mean, just being around first responders and knowing, like our family, one of the first things is, hey, let's breathe through this.
Yeah.
Because then it gets your brain to start to function.
Right.
And gets more oxygen up there. And even when you're doing, like we're doing now, we're on video, is one of the big things that when coaching other people on like, hey, how are you going to record this video, is one, you have to take breaths.
Right.
You have to think about what you're doing, and you have to, like, even if it's in between breaks or anything like that, you've got to make sure that you're calming yourself down and then bringing your energy back up, because otherwise you're going to get confused. You're going to forget what you're saying. And then it's like the snowball effect. Once you stop giving one area of your body the attention that it needs, and especially the one that runs it.
Yeah.
You're talking about the brain. Once you stop giving the brain what it needs, everything else is going to go downhill.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yep, that's correct, Dylan.
Give some people some tips around, say they're moving to the Kansas City area, they're going through that home buying process. What are some tips that they can help themselves get them in a better state of mind? If they're in that fight or flight state, they're starting to panic a little bit. What are some things that they could do?
I know we already talked about breath, but like another easy one, and then I'll go into like a more complex one, is just movement, right? So walking is super good for your body. Just the natural, as I walk forward and my left leg extends and my right arm extends, like that's called a cross crawl pattern, and that is very calming to your body. Your brain loves that pattern. And then if you're able to stack ideas on top of each other where, hey, I'm stressed, I'm going to take a time out from this activity. It's a nice day. I'm going to go outside and I'm going to walk. And as I'm walking, I'm going to focus on, I want to take an inhale for 4 steps. I want to take an exhale for 6 steps. I know that sounds complicated, but if we can stack ideas on top of each other, like we know breathing's good, right?
Correct.
We know walking's good. Those together are very good. And then something that like another high payoff, a function that I look at is our vision.
Okay.
So, and again, it seems silly because we have to see to navigate the world, but out of all of our senses, out of touch, out of smell, 75 to 80% of the incoming information that comes into our body, it comes through our eyes. And so if you're in an office all day, right, and the lighting is harsh, one of the best things that like you can do is to, it's called palming, and it's giving your eyes a break. And again, it's such a powerful tool to get out of that fight or flight and into the rest and digest. And so palming is very simple. You would sit, you'd close your eyes, and then you would just kind of put so then you kind of just put your palms over your eyes. And
makes sense.
Yeah.
Now that you're saying palming, it makes sense. You put your palms over your eyes.
Yep. And then once your palms are over your eyes, then you just open up your eyes and kind of just look into the dark, and give your eyes like a little massage. And like I usually tell people to try that for 1 or 2 minutes. And then, like I said, like it sounds too simple, but if we can take your eyes and give it a break and take the stress out of it, when you come back in to the real world, it's like your nervous system has restarted because you're giving it a timeout from what's stressful, refueling it, and then starting again.
Yeah, and it gives you that quick break. I love that. So kind of flip the script a little bit. We talked a little bit about snowballing. What are some things that when you're in that fight or flight state not to do?
Yeah. So that's a great question. And a lot of times what people do as they're in the fight or flight state, that's what allows it to snowball, right? So
Correct.
Since we're talking about moving, let's say that we're getting ready for a move, and that's a big deal, and that's stacked on everything else you've got going in your life. And so let's say that I wake up in the morning and I am like, oh my gosh, I've got to go to work. Then I have to go home. I don't have time to eat. I just need to get showered and head off to work. Not giving your body fuel, like I said, like if your body has no fuel to work with, it's going to have no energy to handle all of the emotions that go into your day-to-day life. So like not eating breakfast, that's not a good way to start, because as you go to work and you interact with coworkers, that's stressful, right? And like doing your work is stressful. And if you give your brain no fuel, it's going to have no energy to, make decisions or deal with conflict. It's just going to go into an automatic reaction, which usually is not good.
Correct. That's when you see people kind of lose it on their other script. What's another thing that they, if somebody's looking at in that fight or flight state and they shouldn't be doing?
Yeah. So the other thing is sleep, right? We cannot put sleep on the back burner. Sleep is important. And so again, like I said, moving's stressful, and in this culture that we're in, we always think about, hey, I need to go. I need to get all this stuff done. I don't need to eat. I don't need to sleep. I don't need to relax. Those things are super important. I would say that like the more busy you are, the more time that you need to, carve out and be intentional. And so
you said something there that I want to grab onto, intentional.
Yeah.
So I know a lot with social media and everything that we've got going on. I mean, people are watching this video now.
Yeah.
That's not intentional rest for your brain. That's actually a
stress.
That's actually a stress for your brain.
Yeah.
Because it's constantly trying to gather all this information.
Yep.
And talk a little bit about that. What does that intentional rest need to look like?
Yeah. So, I'm like everybody else. When I get done with the day, like I want to just veg out. Like I want to sit down on the couch. I want to watch TV, and that's good. And that's healthy. But what I am what I try to get people in the habit in is like an hour or an hour and a half before bed, the TV goes off, the phone goes away, and and you don't have to go to bed at that time, but start to wind your body down. Like we talked about, like being on the phone and watching the TV, like that is exciting to your brain and it's stressful, like we just said. So instead of that, like reading is very good. Like that is going to activate your brain, but in a less stressful way.
And it's calming.
It's calming, yes. And then that would be like a great time to work on breath, right? So like when people say, hey, like I just can't shut my mind down, I'm too wired, I can't go to sleep. So again, we're using breath to take you out of the fight or flight and put you into the rest and digest. It's called a box breath drill, okay? And so let's say your tempo is 3 seconds. The reason it's called a box breath drill is you are drawing a box with your breath pattern. So like I said, inhaling through the nose, so it would look like this. And inhale through the nose for 3 seconds. That's like the first side of your box. You hold your breath at the top for 3 seconds. You exhale for 3 seconds, and you hold your breath at the bottom again. And that's a box breath drill. And again, that's getting full deep breaths, getting like enough oxygen and carbon dioxide in your body, and then a full exhale. And kind of like the magic mark is for at least 2 minutes. If you can set aside 2 minutes, it'll make a world of difference in the wind down. Like you'll be able to like.
So you're saying do that box breath drill before you go to bed?
Correct. Yep. And like I've had people just in one time say, hey, that was amazing. I slept through the night. I didn't have to go up and go to the bathroom. I feel so much better. And it's just from something simple, like for 2 minutes.
Yeah, which, I mean, it completely makes sense because anytime I'm stressed out or anything's going on, I've never heard it as the box breath drill, but I do a similar concept of where I put myself in a situation where I'm like, okay, now I'm going to take deep breaths and bring myself back down.
Yeah.
And I know that's one thing that everybody struggles with, whether you're moving or not, is sleeping. How do I get to sleep? I talk to people all the time, and they're like, oh, I couldn't sleep last night. Yeah. And so that's a great tip. If you're struggling to sleep, do that box breath drill because it's going to help you out. And it's one thing that I've never heard it called that, but I do use that to help bring my mind back down to where I can be in a calming state.
Yeah, that's good, Dylan.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the Kansas City area. So that's one thing that I am focused on is educating people on what to expect when they move over to this area. You have a pretty unique background. You were talking earlier about how when you were a kid, you moved quite a bit. But you've been in the Kansas City area for about 15 years now.
Yep.
And just with having that different perspective of you've lived in different places, what are some things that you like about the Kansas City area?
I love Kansas City, and there's a lot to like about it. One of the things I like about Kansas City is that the different areas of the city are so unique, and they're so different from each other. And so, like growing up, I lived in Overland Park. Overland Park is a great place. There's restaurants and stores everywhere. It's super convenient. And right now I live downtown. I think that's my favorite place. Like downtown is amazing. And what makes Kansas City like unique is it's still growing and it's still changing. And
it's growing in every direction.
Yes. Yeah. And so like in a city like Chicago, it's already huge. So there's only so much that can happen in Chicago that's new. In Kansas City, there are new businesses coming in all the time, new things that we haven't had in Kansas City. A good example is like Chicken and Pickle, like pickleball.
Yeah.
That totally changed the neighborhood, and it brought a lot more people to that area.
Yeah, and that's that North Kansas City area is huge.
Yes.
And it's blown up in the last few years. and you see a lot of people talking about how much the market has grown, and you see that in whether you're looking in the suburbs outside of Kansas City, you're looking at Kearney, Smithville, like you were talking about Overland Park.
Yeah.
Everywhere is seen as this Kansas City metro area.
Yeah.
And you've got everything, whether it's the Northland or you got south of the river, north of the river a little bit, the river market. Everywhere is you seeing new businesses come in.
Yeah.
And it's and the one thing that I love about the Kansas City area is that it's so inviting too.
Yes, people are so nice.
Correct.
Yeah.
You're bringing in new businesses. Not every place you go is inviting to new businesses of similar mindset, where we're in the ACA group, and that is one thing that I love about it is it's inviting. There's so many people with extensive backgrounds in what you do and what I do. And they're like, hey, come in here. How can I help your business grow?
Yeah, it's so cool. And that's the theme of Kansas City. How
can I help you?
Yep. Or like, how can I help you? Or what can I show you? Like what are you interested in? I'll give you recommendations. It's really cool.
Now, he said something there, and that's a Missouri thing, not a Kansas thing. So if you're thinking about whether it's Kansas City and you want to move the Missouri side or the Kansas side, it's a Missouri thing. It's show me state.
Yeah.
But no, no matter where you're at, whether you're in the Overland Park, you're on the Kansas side or the Missouri side, it is a very inviting environment, and I think that's huge to hit on. So with that being said, what are some things, everybody has their grievances with the different areas that they live. What are some things you necessarily don't like about the Kansas City area?
So it's getting better, but I love to run and to bike, and I live, like I said, like in the downtown area, and it can be a little bit hard to run or bike when it's a busy time of day. It's getting more friendly. There are bike lanes that are coming and things like that, but in the morning it can be hard to run.
And I think that's been more of an emphasis over the last few years with the focus that people are getting on health and fitness, and there's new bike programs. I've got a buddy of mine that is working on All Kids Bike for the Kansas City area and different Liberty schools and other stuff like that.
Yeah.
And now with those programs getting in place, they're talking about bringing out different bike paths and everything like that. I know there's a lot of talk behind the scenes on that stuff. But that is one thing that if you're really into that, you got to find areas that do have those. And there is quite a few actually hidden around.
Yeah. Yep.
You'd be surprised.
Yep. Like there are so many nice trails in Kansas City. That's what I was going to bring up too. Like there are lots of, big, nice trails all over the place.
Yeah. But you got to know somebody that knows them.
You're right. Yep. And that's why it's important that people are friendly, right?
Correct. And that's why it's important if you're moving to the Kansas City area, find some networking groups, and even just ask. I mean, if you're working with a realtor, you're working with somebody that knows the area, ask them, say, hey, this is what I love to do. That's what I like to do when I'm talking to clients is I want to know what are your hobbies? What do you like to do? Because that's going to play into where I want to place you in a home. If you don't know anything about, now if you have a specific neighborhood that you want to get into, that's different.
Yeah.
But if you're like, hey, I want this style of house, I want to be in this style of area, I'm going to be like, okay, well, what else are your hobbies? Yeah. Because if you like pickleball, for example, or if you like to run, or if you like to golf, then let's go find somewhere that's going to be close to one of those attractions.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be huge. That's going to make your life easier. You're going to love that home because you're going to be like, hey, I'm within walking distance of this trail. I know on one of our neighborhood videos, we talked about one of the cool things about the neighborhood that we were doing in Kearney, which is a suburb outside of Kansas City, is that there was a bike trail. There was a 10-mile bike trail that you could stay on, and it basically went in an entire circle.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And, it's huge.
Yeah.
So, and when you're when you love that type of stuff, you move into a house that will cause significant buyer's remorse if you can't do the things that you love.
Yeah, right.
And then adds to the stress and the health.
Yep,
You've got the health guy on here, and it just snowballs.
Yep, it's all related to each other. You're right.
Okay. So with that, what are your favorite attractions in the Kansas City area?
Yeah. So I love the city. I really like the atmosphere of Kansas City, like downtown and the crossroads in North Kansas City. Like, I love it. And so when I have fun and when I'm with friends, like that's what we go do. And and that's what I was talking about. Like Kansas City has changed so much in the last 5 years down here that whatever you want to do, whether it's, being active and going to play pickleball or going to a super fancy restaurant or going to like distilleries and stuff like that. Kansas City has all of it, and downtown you can do a lot in like the radius of like a 10-minute drive.
Well, and the cool thing is, I know they've started that Ride KC, where they've put out the scooters and the different bikes and stuff, and you can use those as well. And it's a fairly inexpensive way to, if you're into art, culture, and different stuff that you're looking at, and you just want to go explore the Kansas City area, you can go get one of those, take it and rent it out for a couple hours, drive around, and then park it at a different spot if you need to.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's exactly right. So, like, if you were wanting to do that, like, there's an area in Kansas City called the Crossroads.
Yeah.
So, like, what's cool about it is I could go on the Crossroads. I could, check out some cool restaurants, go to a bar, look at some art, right? And then I could rent a scooter. I could take it to downtown Kansas City, where there's, like, our entertainment district, like the Power and Light and the T-Mobile centers down there. So like that's where like big bands and big events come. So I could go do that. And then I could take that scooter down to the area that we're in now, which is called the River Market, which is one of the coolest areas in Kansas City. And again, like tons of cool shops, tons of good restaurants, and it's just a really cool vibe.
Yeah, and you get to talk, and you can literally stop on any corner block and talk to anybody.
Yeah.
And probably have a conversation all day. And if you around this area, I mean, we were at ACA today and talking to different people, and then that's the unique thing about the Kansas City area is somehow everybody knows everybody.
Yeah.
And
It's super connected. That's awesome.
Correct. So we were talking about how I actually went to school with her daughter.
Yeah.
It's just
that's so cool.
You always find unique things as you're talking to different people, or you'll find somebody knows somebody, and you just got to ask them like, hey, and you get to talking, and you can have conversations for days.
Yeah.
Very inviting. Further on that, it's somebody moving to Kansas City. They're not from this area. I know you said you spent some time in Portland. Just somebody moving from this area. What are some things that you think they need to know about the area? To help their move easier. Yeah.
So we talked about this earlier that Kansas City is growing in a lot of different ways. But what's nice about Kansas City is it isn't like a city like Chicago or Atlanta where the traffic is awful. It's nice because wherever you live, it's about 20 minutes to get anywhere in Kansas City, right?
And it doesn't matter where you're coming from.
Right.
Yeah.
And again, like what we talked about earlier is each suburb of Kansas City has its own unique vibe. And so that's what you were saying. So if you're a family who, likes to be active and outdoors, like he's going to find you a place that has a community that has parks and stuff like that, like he was saying.
And I think that's huge. You got to find out what everybody wants and what you're looking for. And even if you're looking for something, you're like, you want to be in that more industrial type area. There is areas around here like that as well.
Yeah. So there's just a variety of different, suburbs and locations and fields that like you can choose from. And, like I said, it's an exciting city. Like I said, the more that I find out about Kansas City and the things that are coming, like in 2026, you've got the World Cup coming here.
Yeah.
Like it's an up and coming place. I mean, it's already big, but it's just going to get better and better. And like, I feel like it's going to be the next Austin.
It's the home of the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I mean, we
got the Royals and the Chiefs and Sporting. So we got a lot of fun stuff to do.
A lot of sports towns. Hopefully, eventually, we get a basketball team.
Yeah.
That would be awesome. That's my all-time dream for the Kansas City area.
Me too. I love basketball.
And the one thing that I would say that sucks about Kansas City is that we don't have a basketball team.
Yeah. And then, I forgot to mention one of my favorite things is music. I'm a bass player, and Kansas City has a great music history, especially with jazz.
Yes.
One of my favorite things to do is go to the Phoenix or the Green Lady Lounge and watch some some great jazz.
Yeah. And I mean, correct me, like those are pretty inexpensive options to get out there. And,
Yeah. Oh, I think the
enjoy
Phoenix is
yourself.
free to get in. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're looking at that. That's some of the cool things that when you're looking to move into the Kansas City area is if you can find unique people and figure out what their hobbies are, and especially if you can co-align them, then you can find some unique spots where you can go and play or go and watch some unique different situations. I know, like especially if you're into sports, there's a lot of different community centers that have inexpensive options to where you can go play basically any sport you like or go watch. There's a lot of, I mean, I know the community sport, like if you're into coaching or anything like that, I know they're always looking for people as well.
Yeah.
And then even on the music side, if I have a lot of musicians that are friends as well, and the cool thing is that all of these spots are pretty inviting as well, so they'll allow people to come in and play.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like there's one tonight that's an open jam, so if you know how to play, you just come in and they'll hook you up.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. So on that, with some things that people need to know, we hit a lot on the great things, and I believe that Kansas City is a great area.
Yeah.
But I always want to prep people. What are some things that you ran into that you didn't expect? And being here the last 15 years, it's hard to say that. But what are some things that you've seen just talking to other people that have moved to the area that they're like, oh, I wish they would have told me about this?
Yeah, so a couple of my clients are from New York City. So like they came from like the like a giant city, right? Like a world city to Kansas City.
Correct.
And one of the things that, just from talking to them is, I know I mentioned this a couple times, but because Kansas City is so sprawling, it can take a while to get to places too.
Correct.
Yeah. It can take like a while. And like, I feel like everybody says this about their city, but there are parts in Kansas City where the roads are pretty bad. I was trying to think because I saw the outline and I was trying to think of things that I didn't like about Kansas City. And I know I'm biased, but I'm not just saying this. It's a pretty good place to live. I mean, it's exciting, it's affordable, and the people are great.
But that is something that people talk about is if you're looking to move to Kansas City and you don't know your way around necessarily, construction can be an issue.
Yeah, it can be confusing.
Because it never fails. They're always working on roads.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're like, you were just working on this a couple weeks ago. Like, what are you doing here?
And you saying that got me to the point I wanted to make. So, like, if someone lives in a New York City or a Chicago and they don't drive a lot,
correct,
they need to be prepared to drive in Kansas City. Yes,
and that is another thing that people need to be prepared for. We do not have the same, like, let's talk about Dallas, New York City, or like Ubers. Like, you go out there and Uber, if you're in the heart of Kansas City, but if you live out in one of those suburbs, you're not looking at Uber as a viable option because everybody out there has a car.
Yeah.
Because back to what you were saying, it's very fast to get to places.
Yeah.
But the other modes of transportation are limited.
Right. Yep. And that's what I was trying to say. Is there's a big switch between one of those cities in Kansas City.
Correct. You can't just walk outside. Oh, I'm on this corner and pick up an Uber, and then that's going to take me over to this area,
right? Yeah.
Or whatnot. Because a lot of them are where traffic's not as bad. It is a huge mileage thing.
Yeah.
And so the rides cost more,
yeah,
different stuff like that. So you don't see that stuff as much.
Yeah.
I had that situation actually happen. I was in Dallas training for, and the whole time I was down there, I was on an Uber. Well, when I got back, I ended up having a situation where I would have never used an Uber in Kansas City just because it was rarely ever used. But when I got back, the person that was picking me up ended up in the hospital.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, I got to figure out a way to get to the hospital. So I ended up and I probably could have called somebody, but at that point I was just like, I'd been using it the whole time in Dallas.
Yeah.
I was like, let's see if we can do it.
Yeah.
It was a nightmare.
Yeah. Yep. I've done that before too.
It took forever, and it was just completely different. They had no idea where we were going.
Yeah.
And where, like, you get an Uber down in the Dallas area and you find somebody that, like, they go through those roads so quickly, and they know exactly how to maneuver. And I don't know if you've ever driven in Texas, but it is a different animal down.
Yeah, they're aggressive and they don't mess around.
Correct. And I'm New York City. I couldn't talk on that because I've never been.
Yeah.
But I would imagine that they're the same way.
Yeah, I think so
You always hear
too.
about the taxis and different stuff, and most of those people know the areas pretty well. But it's so diverse out here.
Yeah, so diverse.
That you, like, finding somebody that knows every single road, it's impossible.
Yeah.
So I think that's some big things. We hit on some great things. Give us a couple extra things that people could do to kind of calm themselves. I know we've talked a lot about breathing, and that's one of the huge things. But what's a good value pitch that you're able to help them out, like maybe some strength stuff? What are you looking at?
Yeah. So the thing that makes Atlas different from any other facility is when you come to see us, whether it's a strength goal or a mobility goal, we take that big picture approach. So instead of like if someone's coming to me to get more flexible, they might think that they're coming in to, do stretching and stuff like that. Like with our background, we'll look at your brain and like how you're functioning through our assessment. We'll look at how you're walking, what your eyes do, how you're able to control your right side compared to your left in terms of joint mobility. But so if someone were coming like to me for a flexibility issue, like the muscle would be the last thing I would look at. The first thing I would look at would be sensation. Like, what kind of sensation can we give you to get your brain to relax and go into your and to come out of the fight or flight and into the rest and digest? And that could be soft touch, that could be hot or warm, that could be cold, that could be vibration. But one of those sensations is going to allow your brain to understand, okay, we can move deeper because it's safe, because we understand it. Because the skin is the biggest organ in our body, right?
Correct.
And so if we can, get our brain more aware of where our body is in space, that is huge. And from there, we'll build into, normal, movements. Like, we'll work on strength. We will work on balance, but it's all coming from, we're going to take you from where you are and what your brain currently views as a threat or not. And through sensation, through breath, through joint mobility, and through strength, combining all of those at the right times allow us to be very successful with people who have been told, this is as good as it's going to get. You'll always have pain. You'll always be bad at balance. And we're human. Our brains are amazing. We can always learn new things, so we're always capable of change.
You can always use another body part to compensate for.
Yeah.
And that's how a lot of injury, I've listened to a lot of sports medicine, different stuff like that, and they say that's a lot of injuries is because it comes from you overcompensating and not knowing how to compensate for another potential strain or injury, and your body just says, hey, maybe my ankle's hurting, and then that's when you see people have their ACLs torn or different stuff like that because their body's not used to that motion. Yeah.
And that's a great point, Dylan. And again, we want to help you get to the root of your problem, not work around it. And so, again, through all of those things I mentioned, all of those things just give in your brain you have maps, and through our assessment and through our work together, we will make those maps clearer so your brain understands, so the pain goes away, so you move better.
Correct, because in the original, and we've had a ton of conversations, and the brain wants to take the path of least resistance.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when you're looking at the stretches and you're saying, oh, this is as far as I can go, well, then it's not really. You're just, something's telling you to stop.
Right. And and that barrier is not, so like when most people stretch and they hit the end point, they're like, oh, well, I need to hold this. This is good for me. It's the opposite. That barrier is your brain rejecting where you're going. And so any work that you're doing that, like pushing and holding and holding and holding, like that may feel good, but that's not what's going to get into lasting change. You need to show your body that like you can move in those areas, and then your brain will say, okay, I can go and touch my toes and I know I'm okay. So I'm going to let them do it every time.
Yeah. Yeah. And to touch on that a little bit more, now that we're getting into the sports side of stuff, I know that's one thing that a lot of parents, if you're moving in the Kansas City area, you've got kid athletes and stuff like that, and you're trying to make sure that they're in the best situation. We've talked about this, so I know you're big on this. You've helped quite a few athletes,
Yeah.
And that's one of your good niches is you figure out how to help them best perform by getting the same things you're talking about, getting the brain working on the all together, getting everything to work together.
Yeah, that's right, Dylan. And as an example of that, I worked a couple months ago with a girl, very good soccer player. Last season, she tore her ACL. Mm-hmm. They did surgery to repair it. And basically the sports medicine doctor was like, hey, you're not responding the way we thought you would. We don't think you can play soccer again. And again, this is a girl who's a freshman in high school who loves something.
Correct.
And a doctor is taking it away from her or telling her that she can't do it again.
And she's like, bet. I'll figure it out.
Yeah. And because, it mattered to her and her parents, like they came to me and said, hey, this is what's going on with her. And this is what we've been told. And she was with me for 2 months. And in that 2 months, again, we showed her brain that her knee was okay. We showed her that she could control it, and then showed her how to reintegrate or like learn how to move again. And she cleared her sports physical, and she's playing. So like, again, that just speaks to the power of our brains and our bodies. We are resilient. We can do whatever we want to do. We just need to give our body things that it understands in order to heal.
And I think that's one thing that's untouched, especially in the lower levels of sports, is that people think, oh, well, they should be afraid to get hurt again when they're playing that sport. But what really happened to them was a freak accident.
Correct.
Or maybe they weren't ready for the specific move or something like unpreparedness.
Yeah.
And by you guys being able to just go in and rewire the brain.
Yeah.
And it sounds weird to say rewire, but that's what you have to do. You have to go in and rewire the brain to say, hey, I'm okay.
Yeah. And that's exactly what's happening. I mean, that's how we learn from our mistakes, right?
Correct.
If our brain wasn't capable of change, we would make the same mistakes over and over and over again and never learn. And it's just like that for your body. Yeah.
And it's one of those things where if you're hearing you're hearing no from multiple people, I would encourage you to reach out to Danny, especially if you're, even if you don't have to be an athlete, but you've got other health issues and you're hearing different things like, hey, you'll never be able to walk like this again, or you'll never be able to move your arm in that way again. There's so many things that you guys can do that just helps. I've heard countless stories just from hearing you talk to different people and being around you quite a bit. I've heard countless stories of, just like you're talking about with this girl, that you've been able to help somebody when everybody else told them no.
Yeah. And athletes is a part of our business. The part that's growing the most is adults, right? That have been dealing with something for a long time, and their answer has been surgery. And
give me another story of.
So one of the coolest stories, one of the coolest people I've ever worked with. She is, her name's Christy. She's 48 years old. And when she was a teenager, when she was 16-ish, she got into a bad car accident. It was a horrible car accident. She broke bones. Like, she said that her leg was literally hanging off of her body.
Oh my gosh.
And because science was different then, they said, okay, we're going to, repair your body surgically, but you're young, you're going to recover. And so she never got any physical therapy and never learned how to move again. The doctor said, you're good. Basically, you'll be okay. She lived with chronic pain for a long time, like 20, 25 years. And like I said, she had gone going to a doctor, going to a specialist, doing surgery, and then at the end of that surgery, being in pain. And and still being in pain and having to recover from the surgery, it brought her no relief. And she couldn't do the things that she loved. Instead of, loving life, she just learned how to deal with the pain.
Yeah.
And so when she came to see me, she told me all of that. And, again, based on her verbal history and, watching her move and knowing what, parts of the brain I needed to work on to get the outcomes we wanted. The first thing that we did, like I said, is we lowered the threat level. That was a lot of sensation. So for her, it was heat. And most of her injuries were on the right side of the body. And just because of the way that we're wired, that meant that we did a lot of sensation work on the left, with heat. We did a lot of breath work. We did a lot of it's called your vestibular system. That's how we balance, which is our eyes and our inner ear. We did a lot of vestibular rehab, and her life, she's been with me for 2.5, 3 months. Her life is drastically different now. Again, I guess just to give you a picture of what she looked like before. When I would ask her to, try to touch her toes, it would be a very small movement, and she would say that hurts. Or when I would ask her to, stand for an extended period of time, she couldn't do it because she was in pain.
Yeah.
Now, when she walks in the door, we'll do those assessments, and without me doing anything, she can touch the ground easy. She's able to walk. She's able to exercise again and engage with her family. And again, it's just so.
You changed her life.
Yeah.
That's the awesome side of it. And that's the part that I get super excited about, is just the knowledge that you have of how the brain works. And nobody realizes that you got to do you were talking about it there, and it may have flown over people's head. The left side is control. She has pain in the right side, so you're focusing on the left side and how these things are wired, and the focus that you've put on your education of the brain and how the body works is why I would say every time if somebody asks, hey, I've got this, I'm like, well, here's a guy, you got to reach out to him.
Thanks, Dylan.
And if everybody's told go get an opinion from him, because he might be able to tell you, hey, yeah, if you keep doing those type of things,
yeah,
they're probably right.
Yeah.
But if we do these type of things and figure out how to rewire your brain to get it to work properly.
Mm-hmm. Yep, there's a better way.
Correct. So I really appreciate, and Danny, it's a great talk every time we get together. But give me, you've went through a ton of stories and different stuff and
Sure.
how you're able to help people, but give me your elevator pitch. I ask everybody, give me your elevator pitch. Why do people need to come to you?
No matter what your goal is, whether it is weight loss or pain management or I want to be a better athlete, those things are valuable goals. And whether you realize it or not, your goal is saying, I want to change something about myself. And we take your goals seriously. And again, our body is complicated. Our body does nothing on its own. So in order to reach whatever goal it is, you need to eat well, you need to move well, and think well. And at Atlas, we have the tools to do all of it. And so I handle the movement piece, like you've heard me talk about, but I have a dietitian who does functional medicine, and she does, like, she can order blood tests, like any test that like you could imagine. She will order it so that we can get to the root cause of your issue, and then use our expertise to create a plan forward. We also have a therapist who, who deals with the mindset piece. Because if you're not thinking well, like again, like we talked about, like if you're always in that guarded state, movement and nutrition just aren't going to follow. And so we're able to get your mind right. We're able to get your fuel right, and then like I've talked about, like my background and the way that I view the body is unique, and it'll allow you to move the way you were designed to, so that like you can hit the goals that mean something to you.
Yeah, and I really appreciate it. Hey, lastly, before we go, and I didn't bring it up throughout the whole process because I kind of forgot, but I know there is a deal, because you had told me that you invested in it last year. That's a test that you have that not very many places out here in Kansas City do have.
Yeah, it's a great memory.
Talk about that a little bit.
We have a machine. It's called it does metabolic analysis, and so why that's important is if you do that test, it will tell you how many calories you burn at rest. So from a fuel perspective, if you come in and you do this test, and say you're chronically stressed, and the test says, hey, with like at rest, you burn 2,000 calories a day. So that means just living, you're burning 2,000 calories a day. And we ask you, so what's your diet? Like how many, or like how many calories are you eating? And you say, well, 1,200. Like you're not giving your body any chance to function the way that it is. Because if you're burning 2,000 and you're eating 1,200, like the only way your body can get fuel is to get it from itself.
Correct.
And then, like, again, back to that breath idea, that test will tell us how much oxygen you're taking in, how much, or like, how are you exhaling, your heart rate, how are you using proteins, fats, and carbs, which is incredibly important. And so, again, that's just stuff that we don't know until we test. And so we're data driven. So we make decisions based on data. We don't guess.
And correct me, but you'll run that test for somebody. I mean, it obviously has a charge, but you'll run that test for somebody and give them the results so that they can kind of do what they need to with those results as well.
Yep. Like, and if they work with us, that test is provided for free.
Okay. Yeah. And that was going to be my next question. But I highly encourage, I know that was just because I've known Danny for about a year and a half now. Yeah. And I know that was a huge investment for you and your business. Yeah. And that test has done wonders for the people that you've been working with and been able to help you create plans on them. So I encourage you, even if you're not working with Danny, give him a call, have him take a look at that test. It may help, especially if you're working with anybody. I know you guys are super receptive to, again, we're in the Kansas City area. We're all trying to help each other grow and gain knowledge. And so if you're looking to produce better results, reach out to Danny. He'll be able to run that test on you and help you build your plan for how you're going to be the most successful. Yeah. Danny, I appreciate you coming out here today.
Well, thanks. This was really fun.
Yeah. Again, I'm Dylan Fry, the real estate guy. And if this is your first time to the channel and you really like these interviews and being able to meet people in Kansas City and see how they're able to help you with your move to the area, or if you already live here, maybe introduce you to some people that you don't know, and get their perspective on the area and hear some different things. Make sure that you like this video, hit that subscribe button so that you'll get, and then hit that little bell so you'll get notifications of future interviews with different people so that you'll get the perspective that you need on the Kansas City area. I appreciate everybody watching this. And again, Danny, the health guy, he's out here giving you everything that you need to make your body and your mind right. Go check him out.